Bringing you the very latest from here at home and across the world, this is Primetime News live on Newsfirst. A very good evening. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Shahin Rampati. Clashes overnight between police and supporters of Egypt's deposed President Mohamed Morsi have left at least 7 people dead in Cairo.
Yeah, we have the details of that story with a comprehensive report on the situation in Cairo later on in the news. But before that, here's a look at tonight's headlines.
President says that the World Bank should focus on large transformational projects. Supreme Court rejects a request made by petitioners to withdraw 4 petitions filed against former Chief Justice. MP Arundigo Fernando informs court that he saw Pragit Eknaligoda in France. 2 more local government politicians under remand custody for defrauding money.
Moving on to the stories in detail now. In a meeting with the World Bank Executive Director for Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh and Bhutan, Mukesh Prasad at Temple Trees yesterday, President Mahinda Rajapaksa urged the bank to focus more on large core projects rather than smaller projects that have a lesser impact. The communique issued by the President's spokesperson and the International Media Unit states that the Executive Director had agreed and said that the World Bank has begun to focus on more larger transformational projects that have a direct bearing on the goals of the country.
During the meeting, the President had said that an example of a successful bank-funded project is the work done on urban development in Colombo and sought the assistance of the World Bank to accelerate the project approval process. The President had noted that it currently takes a very long time for the project documentation to be processed, which causes further delays to the project's implementation. The communique issued by the President's spokesperson and the International Media Unit said that Mukesh Prasad had said that the World Bank could do more in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Gregory's Road in Colombo 7 was renamed as the Sir R.G. Senanayake Mawatha and was declared open by the President today. The road was renamed after Sir R.G. Senanayake as a tribute to his political, social and religious service to the nation. Meanwhile, the President handed over to the family a gazette notification renaming the road in which the house of the late Sir R.G. Senanayake is located. Well, after grueling 2 hours, a driver who was trapped inside a bus which met with an accident in the Thithavalmankada area in Vevaldeniya on the Colombo Kandy Road was rescued. The accident was a result of a collision involving 2 private buses.
The accident occurred when a private bus plying from Colombo to Valimada collided with a luxury bus plying from Batticaloa to Colombo. Our correspondent said the accident took place at around 3:45 this morning. According to the police, the bus plying to Valimada was travelling on the wrong lane, resulting in the accident. The police and the locals in the area spent over 2 hours to rescue the driver of the private bus who was stuck in the debris. The rescued driver was admitted to the Vatupitivala hospital where he continues to receive treatment for severe injuries. Heavy traffic congestion was reported for several hours this morning on the Colombo Kandy main road from Nittambua to Varkapola following the accident.
The Supreme Court rejected a request by the petitioners to withdraw 4 fundamental rights petitions filed claiming that the appointment of the Parliamentary Select Committee to consider the charges against former Chief Justice Dr. Shirani Bandaranayake was unconstitutional.
The petitioners sought permission to withdraw the cases as the Supreme Court had deemed the appointment of the Parliamentary Select Committee as unconstitutional. Objecting to this, Deputy Solicitor General Savindra Fernando pointed out that as the petitions had been filed citing public interest, they could not be allowed to be withdrawn. The case was brought before a 5-member panel consisting of Salim Marzook, Chandra Ekanayaka, Satya Hettige, Eva Vanasundara and Rohini Marasinghe. The Deputy Solicitor General further noted that the 3-member bench that considered prior petitions against the PSC had provided constitutional interpretation and therefore a 5-member panel remained poised to consider the case and make corrections. The panel, which accepted the Deputy Solicitor General's facts, decided to refuse the withdrawal of the petitions filed. Meanwhile, the fundamental rights petition filed by the Centre for Policy Alternatives Executive Director challenging the appointment of Chief Justice Mohan Piris was brought before the 5-member panel today. The lawyer appearing for the petitioner, M.A. Sumandiran, requested the case to be brought before a panel consisting of all Supreme Court judges, excepting the Chief Justice Mohan Piris. The Supreme Court deemed the request impractical and said that one judge was ill, while 3 others had provided constitutional interpretation in this case, thus making them unable to sit on the bench. However, the lawyer pointed out that the present bench has been appointed by the Chief Justice. Meanwhile, the appeal filed by the Attorney General against the verdict handed down by the Court of Appeal favouring Shirani Bandaranaike was also brought before the 5-member panel. Hearings of the petition were postponed until the 26th of July, while the hearings of the petition filed in connection with the panel of judges was postponed until the 25th of August. Former Chief Justice Dr. Shirani Bandaranaike appeared before the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption this morning to make a statement relating to an investigation of her assets. The Commission had recorded statements on the same matter from the former Chief Justice on an earlier occasion as well. Meanwhile, international media reports say that lawyers from more than 50 countries are calling for Commonwealth nations to boycott this year's Heads of Government meeting in Sri Lanka. Speaking to Australia's ABC Radio, the Vice President of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Alex Ward, pointed out that the controversial removal of Sri Lanka's Chief Justice shows a lack of judicial independence and transparency.
You'd say, now that's a very serious thing to sack your Chief Justice. The impeachment proceedings were flawed in the view of people because people left and wouldn't have anything to do with them. And then a court subsequently ruled it was inappropriate. And that's been ignored by the government. If you're going to sack the judges who rule against the government, then we see that as a proper basis for you to be excluded and for us to stop dealing with you officially. Now, there's a couple of issues. The important one is the rule of law, a bit more important to the lawyers. You sack the Chief Justice, suddenly you're losing that independent umpire, the one that says to the government, you're doing the wrong thing, and the government says, yes, we will abide your decision. But you have that on top of the human rights issues, which, as you rightly say, are difficult to assess because they're saying we're not going to let you come in and assess them. So I think either of those by themselves are sufficient. Here you've got the two together.
The British government believes that the government of Sri Lanka would issue visas to all accredited international journalists to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, Alistair Burt, made this comment in an interview with the BBC's Sandeshaya service. The BBC Sandeshaya questioned the British Parliamentary Under-Secretary on reports that Callum McRae, who produced a documentary on the last stages of the war in Sri Lanka, would not be permitted to enter the island during Chogam.
We're aware of reports that some journalists have had indications that they wouldn't get visas. Our understanding is that the issue of visas is the responsibility of the Commonwealth Secretariat because they handle the arrangements for Chogam. The United Kingdom has made it very clear that we expect all accredited journalists to have the opportunity to go to Chogam and to travel freely in Sri Lanka when they are there. And we will continue to make that very clear both to the Sri Lankan authorities and to the Commonwealth Secretariat. But the immigration processes and visa processes of a country is sovereign to it, but the Chogam process is handled by the Commonwealth Secretariat.
Meanwhile, at a media briefing at the Ministry of External Affairs yesterday, questions were raised by journalists on whether there were restrictions on international journalists entering the country to report on Chogam.
Minister, there was a lot being said these days about media access for the event, especially international media, and whether two particular journalists will be allowed into the country, Callum McRae and Francis Harrison. Can you comment on that, please?
Well, access is solely the responsibility of the government of Sri Lanka. We have opened up a web page now, and then there are certain issues, but we have addressed them, we have taken up that challenge, and we are in communication with the parties concerned at the moment. The accreditation will be in the same as Perth. We have published it. I think we have reports on that. If you want, we can give you the copies of it. There is, Commonwealth guidelines. According to that, we have done it, and then we are there. So, accreditation will be done in accordance with that guidelines.
How does that respond to the concerns being raised by some overseas that some journalists will not have access? So, would you say that some can't come in any event?
No, it will be there are guidelines. It will be within the guidelines. If all within the guidelines, they are.
So if Callum McRae falls within the guidelines, he can come in?
Of course, yes. That's yes.
The Task Force Secretariat for the 2013 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting notes that Sri Lanka as a member of the Commonwealth of Nations remains fully committed to Commonwealth values, including a free press. Issuing a communique, the chairman of the Subcommittee on Media and Publicity and ICT for the Chogam Task Force Secretariat, Dr. Charita Herath, notes that there had been various reports expressing concern about the accreditation process to cover the 2013 Chogam. Dr. Charita Herath notes that Sri Lanka looks forward to receiving applications from local and international media professionals to cover the event in November. The accreditation for international media will be reviewed and processed by the 2013 Chogam Task Force Secretariat in Colombo together with the Commonwealth Secretariat in London.
Well, let's now take a look at the newspaper cartoon of the day, which we selected from amongst today's English newspapers.
On a number of occasions in the recent past, local politicians have acted with impunity, resulting in numerous arrests. A member of the Galigama Pradeshya Sabha joined the list of these miscreants yesterday.
The United People's Freedom Alliance member of the Galigama Pradeshya Sabha was arrested by the Kegalle police yesterday on charges of fraud. The police media unit said that he had been charged with obtaining close to ₹1 million from various individuals making promises of employment. The police said that 6 complaints had been lodged against the suspect. The suspect PS member was remanded until the 29th of this month, subsequent to being produced before the Kegalle magistrate today. Meanwhile, a member of the Matala Pradeshya Sabha who was also arrested yesterday by the Matale police was produced before the Matale District Magistrates Court today. He has been charged with assaulting a group of employees of a restaurant in the area and extorting money from them. The suspect PS member was remanded until the 24th of this month.